Hi, I'm Meta Spencer, and today we're going to India. Only, thank goodness, I'm going to be able to sit here at my computer, and most of us will be sitting at our own computers in Canada. One of us is going to be in India today, and then we're going to discuss the very difficult time that India is going through, especially about this week. So, um, in here in Toronto is Jill Carr Harris, who is a hi Jill.
Hello, everybody. Jai Jagat.
Jai Jagat. All right, Jill is a Gandhian leader in India when she's there, only she comes home every now and gets a PhD, which is what she's about to achieve in another month or so here. But she's certainly concerned with what's happening in India today, and we will, I'm sure, talk about that because she and her husband Raja Gopal are major figures in the Gandhian movement as it exists today. So, in addition to Jill, we have present today Kolavinu Chand, who is now in India. Chand?
Vizag.
That's in the eastern, on the coast of India?
Yes, eastern,
South India.
South
Very
India.
good. And Chand is a Rotarian who goes around India giving talks to Rotary clubs about nuclear weapons and why India should get rid of theirs. All right?
Yes.
Here in Toronto is my friend Shabir Gwynn, who is very long time a member of the Peace Magazine editorial group. And he's somebody who doesn't live too far from me. So when I need something, he's always coming over and helping me. So thanks, Shabir. Nancy Netting is a really long-time friend. She and I knew each other when she was a graduate student at Harvard, and she's been retired for 4 or 5 years from teaching at the University of British Columbia in Okanagan. Nancy is a sociologist, a retired professor. My regular on these is Doug Saunders, who is a very good friend and a wonderful journalist, just about as good as they get. He's with the Globe and Mail. He's the international affairs correspondent, and he too has been his way around India.
Last time I was speaking to people in India was over last summer, when the question involving, at least the last time I was speaking to people about the COVID pandemic, when the question was, how was it that the infection rates were so high in informal settlements in the cities, what we might call slums, chawls, that sort of thing, despite having an extremely low death rate. And there was lots of speculation about populations that had been exposed to a lot of viruses before, or had levels of hardiness in them, or simply who had a very high death rate due to other things that was masking the effects of the pandemic. And of course, the other question back last summer was, to what extent had the political response from the center, from New Delhi, helped or hindered things? There'd been an attempt to shut down internal movement within India, done in a typically heavy-handed way. And that had caused, as such shutdowns often do, had caused a huge rush back to the villages. It was one of the largest reverse migrations. The largest reverse migration, I would say, that South Asia has seen since partition, which caused some very unfortunate effects of people carrying the disease, rushing back to villages all over the country, and so on. So that was the situation. That was the lay of the land as I heard it from people in India last summer. Now we have a much more dire situation. And I'd like to go around each of you and ask you, I think the starting question, and please go in the direction that your interests lead you, but a starting question for me would be, to what extent have the national politics and some of the state politics of India right now contributed to this unspeakable humanitarian crisis right at the moment? Of course, India is one of several major middle income countries that has a government that's broadly nationalist. And in this case, governed by a party with roots in Hindutva politics that are not just nationalist, but ethnic nationalist in some senses, and which has a very top-down, heavy-handed approach to things. Well, let me leave that as an open-ended question for now. What do you see happening in India, and to what relationship do you think it has to do with the current form of government, form of state in India, or is that being overplayed? I know there have been voices in India saying this is the inevitable effects of Modi's kind of leadership, that this could spiral out of control. Is it? Is it not? So let's start with our one guest who's actually in the country, in the capital of Andhra Pradesh, if I understand correctly. Chand.
These are totally my personal opinion, whatever is being mentioned here. So, firstly, let me tell you that there are elections in India in very high pitch elections are there in certain states like Tamil Nadu in the south and West Bengal in the eastern part, capital of which is Calcutta, where Subir comes from. And there were also elections in Kerala. There were elections in Andhra Pradesh, my own state. Those are the elections not to the houses, but for the other local elections were there. So what I find by my observation is that the elections were given paramount importance by the central government, by our none other than our prime minister, which I can definitely say it could have been postponed in order to reduce this kind of, outbreak of Indian mutant, which is really becoming havoc now, is actually, I feel it's man-made crisis, which could have been reduced had these elections were not there now. And as such, it's too much if I say in this manner, but it's a fact that the prime minister is a power monger, and he, for the sake of power, he's ready to sacrifice anything, which is very evident by seeing the past 7 years how anywhere, if I have elections of my street in Vizag, our prime minister will come to my street for campaigning for his party. Not forget about the city, forget about the state, forget about the anything. For the gully means in our language we call gully means it's a narrow street. If there is any election for the narrow street, he's ready to come there for the elections to campaign. So what I say is that the elections could have been postponed. First thing. Second thing is okay. This is for the election. I will limit it. For other questions, I can answer. So
well, let me ask one. Chan, you said something, I'm not sure whether you meant to say this or not, that there's a mutant. Now, are you, I know that one of the problems with the epidemic in the world is that there are new strains that are more virulent than the first one. But I don't know what strain is taking over India. Are you suggesting that there's a new one altogether, or is this one like the South African or the one there? I don't know. Which one is the prevailing virus in India in this new upsurge of the epidemic?
Okay, Meta, as far as my knowledge is concerned, because in the media, different kind of news keeps flowing, and nowadays it's becoming difficult to know which media is giving the right information. But as far as my knowledge is concerned, Indian mutant is a new variant of coronavirus, and what I heard is that it's different from that of the Kent mutant, at UK, which is called as Kent mutant, and UK. Different mutants are now there, which has different by its biology or by its chemical thing. So it's a mucus kind of a thing. So this is much more aggressive than what had taken place in the first phase of the COVID. So now the world as such is also very worried that it should not come to the world. So world is helping for the reason to see that they are also surviving out from this Indian mutant. That's the reason why US, Australia, and many other countries are coming forward, Japan and other countries, to help India to contain it so that it will not spread to the world and it becomes a havoc or it becomes another nuclear weapon.
Let me throw in, I shouldn't do this, but I want to throw in a thing that worried me that I heard a couple of weeks ago. There's a serious virologist who claims that the vaccines are going to make things in the long run, make them worse. Now, I watched one show in which some other virologists were discussing this, and they say, well, he's got a point, and they don't necessarily want to believe him. But the argument is this, that if you had had the vaccination before the whole thing began, and you could prepare people, the whole population, by having them immunized before the start of the thing, that would be wonderful. But of course, what really has happened is that the thing gets to spreading, and then you give somebody a partial immunity. You give them a shot, and then they're not really immune for a long time. There's a very long period of time in which they're sort of immune, but they're not quite. And during this partial immunity, that's a perfect condition for an evolution of viruses, because you have an opportunity for different strains to compete and see which ones will win in a situation where there's just partial immunity. And that therefore, by having the whole world's population immunized a little bit, and then of course, eventually they will get more immunized, but in that period of time, when they're partially immune, it's going to create worse variants than we could have ever dreamed of. And this person was saying, we will regret it, and it might even have been better not to have the viruses. I mean, not to have the vaccine. Now, I obviously don't know enough to take a position on this, and I haven't even heard it discussed very widely. But it sounds like right there, we're seeing evidence that indeed, if it's true that the Indian variant that you're speaking of is really a new one and it's worse, it's kind of sound like it's what he was describing. So anyway, I should be quiet and let other people talk.
The vaccine which had come in availability for India is unfortunately matching with the time when the Indian mutant, whatever you call the variant, was also at the same time entering into India, more or less. So the only thing is that, first thing is that India is not well prepared for this, and we were just relaxing and doing whatever we want to do. But nevertheless, the only thing is, as soon as we got the availability of vaccine, we want to administer it to the people. In the process, nobody knows whether that's going to be favorable for mutant to aggravate because of that period, which should have been completed by both the doses in order to see that the mutant will not, populate more. That's not known. It's clueless.
So you don't know, if I'm understanding you, you don't know whether the current vaccines are going to be good enough to totally eradicate this variant, if it is a new variant, right?
Right. It's not, see, let me tell you, nobody having clue that it's going to eradicate kind of a thing for the variant. But one thing is there, what I have been seeing is that those who have taken first dose, if they are getting infected by COVID, then what we have seen is the effect on them is relatively lesser than the people who haven't taken vaccine.
Just so everybody knows, last time Jill was on here, she was talking about her work organizing, helping with organized farmers, both during the current round of protests in India and in previous such movements over the last decade or two.
Yeah, I think just to strengthen what my friend Chand has said, the elections in Tamil Nadu, Bengal, Kerala, Assam, and Pondicherry, it really did put a lot of populations at risk. And I think you may or may not know that the Tamil Nadu High Court has condemned, has actually condemned the election commission for allowing the elections to go forward. So this is important for the, as has the Supreme Court also taken the government to task on the lack of preparedness.
Yes.
Focused on the elections, not focused on preparedness, because, a country like India that was able to pull itself out of smallpox, eradicate polio, it knows how to deal with crises. It's had a huge history of crisis management. And, we can say in hindsight, when the health minister in early March, Health Minister Vardhan said that we are now through this pandemic, that yes. they were greatly deluded by what was going on, because if the rest of the world is suffering and somehow India is not suffering, and I understand perhaps there were a lot of experts who were not satisfied with that conclusive statement. So, I think it should be said that the government was ill prepared and should have been more prepared, as is clear. But having said that, now that we're in this crisis, we have to be in it together, and many organizations are doing many things, and rather than criticizing who's doing what and why they're doing it and how late they're doing it, I think we all realize that saving life is the most important thing right now.
Yes.
So in our organization, Ekta Parishad, we have been working with the Chhattisgarh government closely. So to your point, Doug, we're engaging. We're also working with many of the districts in Madhya Pradesh. So both of those are different governments, different parties,
yes.
But working with them both. And what we're trying to do is to really, again, as we did a year ago, open up relief for feeding, getting people to hospitals, paying for oxygen cylinders. Of course, one of the problems has been how the black market now is reselling vaccines and reselling, oxygen at very high prices. You can get your hospital bed and your vaccine and oxygen all for several lakh rupees, if you're prepared to spend that kind of money. Even then, people who have money are finding there are extreme shortages. So now, one of the issues is that the government has made it more difficult for the NGOs to get foreign funds, because there's been a bit of restriction. It started way back actually under Manmohan Singh government in 2011, but it got sort of more and more acute in the sense of the restrictions. So we went from, 1.2 million NGOs in India that were receiving foreign funds down to maybe 1/10 of that, that were allowed by the government of India to receive foreign funds based on their records and their performance. And I think this has been very, very unfortunate, because in a crisis like this, you want all civil society actors to get engaged. So I think the government has a little bit tripped on its own feet, not recognizing the value of having so many NGOs. And so I just want to let other people speak, but to say that in our own work, what we're trying to do is to see women as the, frontline workers. They're the frontline workers of families. They're the ones that look after children, the aged, get the vaccines to the family. And so we're doing a bit of a fundraising effort focused on women's leadership, because there's also a bit of vaccine hesitancy among rural women right now, not to get the vaccine because they're afraid it's not going to help at all. And so they're, to your point, Meta, the most important thing is to give people a sense that the vaccine is their way out, because without that, they're not able to have any measure of buffer between this virus, without that vaccine. So we are, doing this very small fundraising effort. Of course, it's a macro problem, and this is a small contribution, but with many other groups doing many other things, we hope that slowly over time, things will improve. And
can I know that you're going to be wanting people to look at how to donate money. So
yes.
While you're speaking, why don't I put up the poster that I made for that. So we're going to do a little screen sharing here so that people, Jill can talk about this, but those of you should go get a pencil and paper if you have any inclination to donate money to the Indian situation. Jill, go ahead and you can.
You're just seeing where to send the money to, but the idea is to produce masks, and those are about 10 rupees a piece. So we're looking at $30 contributions for that. Critical ambulance service with oxygen at $50. Prescribed medicines in 6 to 60 patients for $100. And we're also looking at small nutritional packets for children, which are roughly 100 rupees per packet. And then 2 weeks of dry food for families, so they don't have to go out. And we're looking at, that's roughly 500 rupees for a dry packet of lentils and rice. So up to $1,000, we can get 100 dry food packets. So if you want to sponsor any of those, one of the things you can do is just send your small contribution to IGINP Canada. This is the International Gandhi Institute of Nonviolence and Peace. They will send it directly. And the other, if you have more, Mahatma Gandhi Seva Ashram. This is in Gwalior. And for those contributions, 1,000 and more, 1,000 Canadian dollars and up can be sent to that organization. And these are organizations that have been working all the past year in this relief of COVID.
I will put this information at the end of the show when I've edited it. So the version that will be on YouTube and on Facebook and our website and so on by tonight, you'll give me that and I'll put that there. Shabir, you were fretting the other day about how things were going with the election in Bengal, in Calcutta. What has come of that? And are you as perturbed as you were when we talked last?
Yes, I am perturbed. But I want to first respond to one of Doug's questions. And that was what he called Modi a nationalist. Well, I would call him an ultra-nationalist. And an autocrat. And Noam Chomsky calls him a fascist, which is accurate. But
If I can just note for people coming in, Shubir is an eloquent writer on the militarization of Indian national politics and the escalation of border conflicts and nuclear arsenal tactics and this sort of thing. So he's very well qualified to speak on this.
Well, I have to tell you, honestly, Doug, I'm a non-academic and I just try and follow as much as I can through my contacts in India. But I should also mention that, Jill mentioned that the Madras High Court had made this statement where they really rebuked the Election Commission. They called them murderers because of their lack of non-partisanship, number one, and secondly, their lack of responsibility. So, and the Election Commission, if you ask anybody who is really following the news in India, they'll tell you straight up that it is not neutral as it's supposed to be. They favor one party, and I don't need to tell you which one that is. The other thing is, I should tell you that to back up my claims that Modi is an extremist, is, this Kumbh Mela, this big gathering in Haridwar, which is a major festival. It's held once in 12 years. Now, what he's done is he's brought it forward by 1 year. This is the 11th year. That celebration should have been done next year. But he wants to bring it forward because he wants to coincide it. It might affect his political future, and all he's concerned about is the elections. He and Amit Shah have been spending all their time in Bengal, and Mamata Banerjee. No, I'm not a follower of any particular party. I don't believe that, but she has been working very hard, and she says that these people are coming in from outside, the BJP types coming in from outside and telling us that they've got to improve law and order. Now, I don't believe that Calcutta has any serious law and order problems outside what it normally has. I mean, this is pre-pandemic. So all this is manufactured. In fact, I had a friend of mine in Canada who said the same thing. He said, oh, well, he has to be there because there's law and order problems in Bengal. I don't believe that. The other problem, as I see, I should like to quote a person by the name of Julius Ribeiro. Ribeiro was the Inspector General of Police in the Punjab, I would say, when I was in India, that was before 1960, 50s. He's retired now, still alive, thank you. And he's rebuked the Prime Minister, and I will post this message on, I'll get better to post it so that you can read it yourself. Modi has condemned, Nehru is now a dirty name as far as the BJP is concerned. He's condemned Nehru. And all you have to do is to read what Ribeiro said about that, because when India became independent, we had nothing. He established the steel mills and got the 5-year plans going and done many things which we are grateful for today. But anyway, that's beside the point. He's gone into that. But this is the type of misinformation that is being spread around, and some people believe it. So my feeling is that, if everybody in India wants to believe that, then we deserve the government that we get.
Well, let me ask you what the government is that you get, because I'm not sure whether the counting is all over. Is the election?
No.
They haven't finished calling the election, the results yet, because it takes place over several weeks, right?
Yes, and that is a crime.
How far along are they in this process? Are they in the middle of the election? Are they? Where does it stand? And is it far enough along so that you can say whether or not what Modi basically has won the election or not?
We won't know till May the 2nd. Now the election in Bengal.
Sorry, they don't announce anything until it's over.
Yeah, right? which to my mind, it gives them an opportunity to fudge the ballot boxes. And especially in Bengal, they've stretched it out for over a month. Today is supposed to be the last day of the elections. and they've had lots of chances. They have had several occasions. If you can check the record in Goa, the opposition won, but the ballots were fudged, and BJP declared a victory. And they got away with it. They're going to try the same thing here again. I am absolutely sure about that. But again, we won't know till May the 2nd. And whatever happens, the possibility of Bengal going over to the BJP it's plausible. It's likely. In Assam,
Despite the pandemic, despite the mess up they made of the
absolutely, in spite of that, because I don't know what people are thinking, but I'll tell you one thing: Modi is very good at his propaganda. He and his team, they are able to convince people that the number of defectors from the Trinamool Congress in Bengal is so unbelievable. I could not believe it myself, because Bengalis are not that vulnerable to bribery, generally speaking. But this time, Mamata Banerjee, the Trinamool Congress's chief aide, his name is Shubhendu Adhikari, he was one of the first people to defect. And I got a picture of him standing with Amit Shah, two, as far as I'm concerned, arch criminals.
Okay, well, we don't know these people, but I just want to know how it's going. And as I understand it, it's not all over India. It's just certain states that are having the elections, right? You're in Andhra Pradesh, Chand. What are you having an election there? And what do you know about what's going on around you? You're not too far from Pondicherry, right?
Elections are taken place. Those are the local elections, like the districts and all, where also the BJP and all the, the state parties were also there in these local elections also, and it was a chaos. People just berserk, they move here, there, and they are crowding and campaigning, all that, and that is one of the worst thing would have happened. Otherwise, in Andhra Pradesh, it was not that serious, and it was not that many cases. So it's like, today, to frankly
Yeah,
tell
but
you,
excuse me, but who's winning? I mean, can you tell from, I don't know whether you have exit polls or things like that. Is there any way to know what the impact of the virus has been on the outcome of the election? I mean, the thing that surprised me is that Trump came so close to winning, despite the fact that he'd caused,
yes,
hundreds of thousands of deaths, and everybody. And I think the same thing in Brazil, Bolsonaro. These guys who are right-wing nuts are doing the worst things for the public health, and yet they seem not to lose political favor because of it. Is that correct from everything you know in Andhra Pradesh and Pondicherry and so on?
in Andhra Pradesh, Pondicherry, and in South, I tell you, there are 5 states in South. Those are Andhra Pradesh, Tamil Nadu, where Chennai is there, Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, where Bangalore, the Indian Silicon Valley, we call it as Karnataka. Then we have Telangana. Earlier, it was part of Andhra Pradesh, got divided into 2 states, Telangana and Andhra Pradesh, and Kerala. There are 5 states. Pondicherry is a union territory, which is earlier a French colony. So these are the places in South. Let me tell you, BJP, the party of Narendra Modi, the Prime Minister, is any winning in these states. It's almost zero, a big zero.
Oh.
So what I want to tell you here to note it is that South India really is totally different by its characteristic from North India. South India is entirely anti-BJP, South India. North India is... So we are really, swear, I tell you, if India can divide into South and North, like North Sudan, South Sudan, I'll be the happiest guy. Not only I, many people in South India, because we are not happy to be integrated with the North India.
Well,
Really?
let's not start a secessionist movement here today. You guys can handle that on your own a little later. I'm not in
No,
favor.
thanks. I don't want that either.
Okay. Why I say that is that that's a clear indication that the BJP has no trace at all. Ask Jill. Jill may be noticing that in the South India, there's no trace of BJP in South India because we know. And today, let me tell you, in India, if I say anything against Modi, I'm anti-national, terrorist, extremist, and I'm brooding everything against this country. And this is what in the air. But if you take Narendra Modi, actually, I can call in a very harsh manner the genocide kind of thing is happening in this country by not taking any Kumbh Mela. You know, as Subir was saying, that for every bathing in the Ganga Snan, we call Ganga Snan, Ganga bathing in the Ganga river, 3.5 million people for one bath first time. Second time, another 3.5 million approximately, makes 7 million already for bathing in that Ganga Snan. So you can imagine how it can spread, and there's no any control. And last year, when there was Markaz, the minority Muslims had gathered for prayers near Delhi, about 10,000 people. It became a big hue and cry because the BJP ruling party says that these people are creating havoc here, creating a lot of COVID. But now look at it, 10,000 versus 7 million people. Where is the justification for this? And Narendra Modi himself says that this is a symbolic prayers. Symbolic prayers, the God will cure out or take out this COVID from this country. This is the kind of superstitious beliefs which I can believe of my religion, but I can't believe of the other religion. Other religion is all bogus. This is the kind of thing. Very sad to say this. This is a fact. And another thing I want to add over here is that the Central Vista, if you have heard about it, India is creating a new parliament bhavan, parliament building with an expenditure of $2.7 billion, $2.7 billion in Indian rupees, 20,000 crores. To frankly tell you, India doesn't need any donations from anybody if we use our funds, what we have, in the right manner for the COVID and other pandemics. But we are making them in wrong places.
In his earlier days, after he was Premier of Gujarat, Modi was saying that one of his claims, and I think most of you are familiar with the image of Ganesh. This is the god of wealth. And he said, well, you see...
he's a god of wealth?
Yes.
This is the elephant.
No, yes, the man, and he's got an elephant head. The upper body is elephant, and the lower body is a human being. He says, you see, this proves that the Indians were experts in transplantation.
Oh, I see. Okay.
He's not god of wealth. God of wealth is Lakshmi. Of preventing any avignam. Avignam means nothing. By praying to him, if there is any hurdle, he can remove the hurdle for you. Okay. So that by removing the hurdle, you can be successful in doing anything. That is what his significance is.
Thank you. Thank you for that correction.
You're welcome. You're welcome. And what all these things? I tell you, in India now, it is like if you call a spade, you will be kicked out. Kind of a situation. You have to all the time praise Narendra Modi and whatever he's doing. We have to say there's no COVID cases. If somebody asks you, you have to say India is free of COVID. If you say, then you will be.
Oh, come on! They're not saying that now for sure. That it's free of COVID.
No, what I mean to say is that at any manner they want that the truth is hidden, but you have to keep pricing. That's what I'm telling.
Yeah. Well, it reminds me of some people I've heard elsewhere. Nancy, you've been very quiet. Tell me what your reaction to all this is. You living there in this blissful Okanagan Valley where you probably, go on.
Tell tell you, we have our outbreaks too.
Yeah.
It just happened this morning. There's an outbreak in another senior's home, and people are saying, but the seniors have all been immunized, or so we were told. So, yeah, it's not quite as bucolic as you might imagine, Meta, but it's not Toronto either. Right?
Right.
Oh,
well, that's true. Toronto is going through one of its more dramatic periods. I don't know, Doug, can you bring me up to date on exactly what's happening in Ontario? I've been reading diatribes against Ford, which sound almost like what people are saying about Modi.
Instead about Trump.
I think, well, Ontario, Canada is one of many places I think that's fallen victim to not great leadership, but I think that's a consequence of a federal structure of things that leaves the big spending and decision-making authority over managing the pandemic at the federal level, but leaves all the on-the-ground health decisions and things like that among 10 competing provinces in the case of Canada, or 16 states in the case of Germany, or 50 states in the United States. And I think federal systems have created some real problems. It's not just federal countries that have failed, of course. I mean, France has had some real problems as well, and it's the most unitary country you can imagine. But I think there's a toxic combination when you have a sub-jurisdictional leader of a state or a province who has styled himself as a bit of a renegade or as a populist who's opposed to the national government's politics and personalities, and who mixes that opposition in with the response to the pandemic. Of course, the United States had the opposite. The United States, the states were often well governed and managing it well, and until January 21st, they had a national leader who styled himself as being opposed to the state leaders, including those within his own party. And surely that hindered things for them. So I'm interested in India, how the friction between the states and the center. I'm less concerning is how many states have gone BJP, although that's a concern for a number of reasons, but also to what extent the states that haven't gone BJP are being shortchanged or victimized by Modi and the center. But let's turn to Nancy Netting, because we have a sociologist here who's done a lot of really interesting work on Indian populations and family. I think, Nancy, I've read your work. Correct me if I'm wrong on this, but on dowry relations and economies and those sort of things in India.
Oh, well, thank you, Doug. I haven't written about dowry as such, but I have written about arranged marriages, and the debate is, are they giving way to self-chosen marriages, or are the families still in control? And yeah, I was thinking, and as for today, I just want you to know that, yes, I've been quiet, but I have been learning an enormous amount about India and the pandemic and the provinces and the elections. And thank you all very much. And what I have brought in, I don't know a lot about how the pandemic is affecting people in India right this minute, as many of you do, but I had mentioned in an email, I think, I got an email from a long-term friend of mine who lives in Lucknow. He's a retired journalist. In fact, Meta, I've known him for a couple of years longer than I've known you, which is quite a record. I mean, it's over 50 years. And he just wrote that he's just really feeling down because some of his neighbors have been found to have COVID. One of his former colleagues at the newspaper in Lucknow has just died of COVID. I mean, he says it is everywhere. It's all around us. Friends, neighbors, family members, I don't know. I hope not, but very likely, of course. And just just imagining myself in that situation is just, it really, it frightens me. It's scary. And it brings me close to Indian friends I haven't seen for many years, just to imagine their lives. One of my very close girlfriends, who's the sister of this former journalist, she and her husband have been vaccinated, but they're still very frightened. Is probably help. I'm sure, as you've been saying, it's been helping them. If they do get infected, they're not going to have the kind of symptoms that many other people are having. But clearly, many people have not been vaccinated. I think my ex-journalist friend was just vaccinated a few days or at most a week ago. So, I mean, it's kind of like here, where you wait and you finally get your appointment. Although how they're doing it in India, I would really like to know, but I'm sure it varies differently from neighborhood to neighborhood and state from state. Yeah, so I'm just really glad to be part of this discussion because, Meta, you know, this is making me think very much of the group that brought us together at Harvard in the first place. It was an India discussion group.
Yeah.
And we sat around and we talked about every issue which came up, and some people gave talks, but it was one of my happiest and most stimulating experiences at Harvard and at grad school. And in a sense, I would like to dedicate this conversation to our dear friend, the late Leslie Howard, who was the leader and organizer of this discussion group.
I didn't know that Les had organized it, but that's another reason.
Well, that's my guess, Meta. I'm not sure. I just think so.
Wow. Okay, now you mentioned the vaccination issue there. I'm a little puzzled about that. Maybe somebody can clarify for me. My understanding was that India was actually manufacturing vaccines on a big scale, was exporting them, but now doesn't have enough. What is the situation? What kind of vaccines are they making, and where, and how is it handled? And what's the logistic principle involved?
The Serum Institute in Pune is one of the largest manufacturers of vaccines, but I understand that some of the materials come from overseas. And yes, it is true that India has been exporting a lot of vaccines into other countries, as well as oxygen. So you have to ask yourself a question: if there's an oxygen shortage in the domestic market, why the dickens have we been exporting so much? And the biggest buyer of oxygen is Bangladesh.
Oh.
All right, going back to your question about vaccines, I don't know if maybe Dr. Chand can give you more details about the other plants in India that make vaccines. And I know that there's a vaccine from Russia that comes. I don't know how much of that is available and what other vaccines are available, but all I know is that the Serum Institute is one of the biggest, and they've been long-time producers. And for some reason, I heard that their production was reduced just before this recent spike. So that must have been less than a month ago. Dr. Chand, do you have any further information on that?
Yes, I can add to that. Yes, India produces vaccine. One is the total domestic company by name Bharat Biotech, which is based in Hyderabad, in the erstwhile Andhra Pradesh. Now it is in Telangana, capital of Telangana, Hyderabad. There we have, but the quantum of production is not that high. But they were asking government was not giving that kind of free hand for them to go in higher production. So government did not give much of support. And the other one is Serum, based in Pune in Maharashtra. That's a Serum Institute by Poonawallas are the owners, and that is having tie-up with AstraZeneca of UK. And here also,
sorry, excuse me. Is it that they're using the AstraZeneca formula and technology, or is it that they're actually getting stuff from AstraZeneca, which is produced elsewhere.
With the AstraZeneca's, formula and technology, they were given permission, but Serum was given permission to manufacture vaccine. That's how the understanding between AstraZeneca and
Now
Serum.
that's the one that's owned by Oxford University, right?
Oxford University.
And
yes,
they
that's
say
right.
they're, as far as I know, they're the only outfit that has so far said we will not make any profits. We will
That's right.
only cover the
Yes,
The
cost
cost.
right.
of producing it. And all of
Yes.
the other Pfizer and all these other outfits are trying to hold out for, big profits.
Big
Is that right?
profit.
So AstraZeneca already has been sending the formula and the technology to places like India.
Yes,
Well, that's
correct.
good for them.
And for your information, if you know that all over the world, vaccine production for any of the vaccines, India's Serum stands 60% of the vaccines for the entire world. This is as per the statistics.
Say that again. They're
The
producing.
vaccines,
60% of the
excluding the
world.
COVID vaccine of the latest, till now, whatever vaccines were there getting across the world, 60% of the vaccines come from India, that is from Serum. This is as per the statistical data, facts and figures.
So that for things like measles or other
Yes, yes,
things
exactly.
other than COVID.
That's
You're
right.
right.
No kidding. So flu, is that true for
Yep.
regular
True for flu.
influenza? Oh,
Yes, you're right.
I didn't know that.
Okay.
Okay.
This is one area where India has that,
But
advantage.
but they haven't been producing COVID in the quantities that they should.
Yes,
And
no.
is it clear why not?
Government
Well,
pressure.
Russia, see, Sputnik is the one vaccine which is Russia in not that collaboration. Dr. Reddy Labs, again based in Hyderabad as headquarters, they are going to market them in India. Russia is going to supply to Dr. Reddy Labs. Okay, that's the other one. And if you have heard Remdesivir, which is
Yeah.
very much there, and it's there in India with the basically the Cipla is one of the company. Then similarly,
Which is
Glenmark,
the company?
Cipla, Cipla, Cipla.
I haven't heard of it before.
Oh, yeah.
You can Google it, you will find it, Cipla. And the other one is Glenmark Pharma. So I don't know. Remdesivir is not the medicine. It's only a steroid which can give more fighting energy for the body. But as somebody was telling, Jill was saying, I think there's a lot of black market for this being sold. For example, it's a 6-dose course, 6 injections of Remdesivir of normally Indian rupees is about 15,000 rupees, which means it is $200 US dollars.
Excuse me,
Right?
that is the drug that they gave Trump when he caught it, right?
Yes.
I believe that he was given some drug that was still experimental, but they've now found that it really was a good thing he got it. All right.
That's the one.
Okay.
So I'm telling you that it's $200 in the normal price is being sold at Indian rupees is 1.5 lakh, which means I'll just tell you it's about $2,000, which means 10 times
Figures.
10 times
Mhm.
in the black market.
Yeah.
So there's a kind of things are not in proper planning, and things are haywire, and anything normally is related with we call it as Ram Bharosa. Ram Bharosa means what? Can you Subir, you can tell them what is Ram Bharosa? That means we claim that Ram, our God Ram had cured everything.
Yeah, that divine intervention by Ram.
Oh, okay.
Ram Bharosa.
Okay. Well,
I'm not counting on it.
I wish you all a happy Rambarosa, but I think our time is just about up.
I have a question for Doug.
Mhm.
And that is that I've been a subscriber to the Globe, but frankly, I have not seen a single article about the farmers' protest.
Oh, we've had articles, including reporting from there, but mostly a lot of analysis and that sort of thing. But of course, there should be more. I think it got sidetracked a little bit by the pandemic.
Okay, and one answer to your question, you were wondering how, despite the density of the chawls, the big slums in Mumbai, the deaths are remarkably low. And that is, I think, my belief is that if you're in a high infectious environment, your immune system perks up. And I think we have to give credit to the immune system. I remember when I was growing up as a child in Calcutta, we used to have, just like the weather report, we used to have a report of all the deaths from cholera, typhoid, diabetes, etc., every day. And in our household, we were given strict rules not to touch any food outside. So our immune systems were naturally stimulated because of the fact of the high, contagious diseases around the area.
I don't know. I'm skeptical about that.
If I could do a little horn tooting on that subject, I looked into some of that for a big research paper I did for a journal called the Mixed Migration Review, which is published out of Denmark. And I have my paper is entitled "Hot Zones: The First Global Pandemic of the Urban Migrant District," and it looks at the phenomenon still visible that COVID remains a pandemic, both in wealthy countries and in lower income countries, that is concentrated in urban migrant districts. It remains a disease of the inner suburbs almost exclusively in Canada and the United States and Western Europe. It remains, it's in many countries, it's a disease of the urban districts where people move from village to city on a regular basis. Anyway,
Is that, but Doug, would you say that's true right now? I mean, I don't know why I got this idea, but I have the notion that this new upsurge in India is also rural.
It's become more generalized. And because of the thing I mentioned earlier, which several of our guests alluded to, which is policies that de facto encourage people to move back to their villages, it's spread widely. So at this point, the Indian emergency is a very, very widespread geographic disease.
And I'm not going to count on my immune system to take care of a damn thing. Thank you. I'm keeping my distance, even from you guys.
Yeah.
You can't come and see me.
I got a shot of the American AstraZeneca in my arm, but I did a polling of Canadians and got them to check the batch number that they were vaccinated with, and a good number of people who responded listed batch numbers that had come from AstraZeneca manufacturing in India as well. So our lives are being saved in this direction as well.
Okay. Well, thank you all. It's been fascinating, and I wish we had a cheerier topic to talk about.
Thank you all. It was a very nice, discussion.
It's the best social life I've ever had.
And
And Jill will.
For mediating, and for Subir, Jill, and Nancy. Really, it's pleasure. I would like to have association with you further.
Good.
Okay. Bye-bye.